Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again, and as always, if it's your first time here, then it is good to see you. I hope you're going to stick around. Well, welcome to our regular weekend video. If you've been following the channel, you know that I normally look to upload a gameplay video every midweek. At the moment, I have been injured, unfortunately, so I've not been able to get out to my regular game, so we've been doing a studio video midweek as an additional one instead of the gameplays. Today, as a weekend, we always do a weekend upload, which is just a studio video where we discuss all things airsoft. We look at gear reviews, replica reviews, we do a bit of tech and everything in between, and we try and keep that up every weekend. So I hope you're enjoying my series of videos, and if you are enjoying my series of videos and you haven't subscribed already, then please do subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any of my uploads, any bonus uploads I do or anything like that. And if you want any more content from the channel, as I've mentioned before, you can find Rock Bottom Airsoft on Facebook and Instagram. There's photos and things like that on there. And that brings us on to today's video. Now, I've got the blue gloves on, the vinyl gloves, which usually means that we're going to be doing a bit of work to one of our replicas today. I've got a job I need to do. Now, if you watched my previous video where I did a little bit of shooting, I mentioned about some problems I had with the used CZ Shadow 2 ASG Airsoft version. I had some issues with feeding. I bought this replica pre-owned. I think it had a bit of a hard life before I got my hands on it, and it had a cracked slide. I replaced the slide and I replaced the nozzle return spring. However, I'm still having some feeding issues with it, and if you follow the channel on any of the social media, you'll know that I've bought a complete loading nozzle assembly to replace. So what I thought today, what we'd do is we'll strip down this CZ Shadow 2, which is here with the new loading nozzle. We'll strip this down, so I'll show you how to strip it down, and then we'll replace the loading nozzle together, and hopefully that should solve all of my feeding issue problems with this pistol. We shall find out. So if you have a CZ Shadow 2 from ASG, one of these replicas, then hopefully this will be helpful for you to show you how to strip your pistol. This is particularly useful if you are going to strip it down for cleaning or anything like that. Remember, if this doesn't fix it, there may be problems with the magazine. The magazine's had a lot of use as well, but we'll see how we get on. So let's get straight into it. What are you going to need? Well, you'll need a 2.5mm hex key. If you're over in the States or here in the UK, we call them Allen keys. I don't know about the rest of the world, but the 2.5mm Allen key, you'll need one of those. If you're going to be doing cleaning, then I'd recommend some Q-tips. And also, it's always handy to have a bit of kitchen towel or workshop roll or a rag to do your cleaning with. Now, obviously, as we're going to be replacing parts, we are going to need to do some lubrication. As many of you that follow the channel already will know, I tend to like to use RC shock oil because it's pure silicone for plastic components. It's a little bit different for cleaning on these CZ Shadows because there's a lot of metal on metal contact. So what I tend to use for the upper slide where it's metal on metal is lithium grease. You can use silicone grease if you like. That's safer because if you get any on the plastic, it isn't going to damage the plastic parts or the rubber parts. But I use lithium grease on the slide only on this pistol. Normally on my replicas, I will use, if I'm going to use grease, I'll use silicone grease because I don't want to risk that getting on any of the plastic or rubber components. Or I'll just use the RC shock oil. Now, this is a particular thin weight of RC shock oil I'm using today because I'm doing it on the loading nozzle and I want that to be quite movable. I don't want it to stick. I usually use about 900 weight for normal lubrication of top slides and things like that when I'm not using grease. Okay, well, let's get this case out of the way. We'll get the pistol out here. Move the case over there. We don't need the magazine for now, so we can put that to one side. We've got the pistol. I'll take the new loading nozzle out of this little package that it came in. Have a look at that. Okay, well, the loading nozzle, as you can probably see, there really isn't much to it. It's a pure plastic component. The slot in the back here where your spring goes, I've already replaced the spring and that didn't solve the problems. So what do we want to do first? Well, first of all, we want to remove the top slide. Now, in order to remove the top slide, you have your slide release here, but that's also your slide catch. That's what holds it in place. So what we do to take that out is we slide the slide partially back. Cock the hammer first makes it easier. Slide the slide partially back, and you will feel just a couple of mil back. You feel a bit of resistance, and then remove this assembly completely and put that to one side. Then push the slide all the way back. Well, he says all the way back and forward. If it's a bit stiff, you sometimes have to push, as I did there. As you can see, it's well lubricated inside there. Now, we don't need the lower part of the replica for now, so we can put that to one side. All we're going to be working with today is the top slide. Now, if you were doing cleaning, then I would clean these rails off, any metal on metal contact, get it all cleaned off, and then it's going to work well. Now, we are going to need to take this out, which is your recoil spring and guide rod. That's going to need to come out. But on the CZ Shadow 2, it's a little bit tricky compared to some of the other pistols you may have worked on, because you can't just slide it out like you normally would. And this is where we need our 2.5mm socket, or hex key, or Allen key, to undo this section at the back. We are going to have to push the whole thing forward and remove this. So I'll take your 2.5mm socket. If you look on the back of the slide, you'll see that that's where your socket will fit, and we need to undo that so we can release the blowback unit. It shouldn't be too tight. Let's undo that. We'll do that together. Okay, once it's out, you'll see that it's a small screw. Don't want to lose that. So let's put that to one side with our slide catch. That's then going to release up this whole assembly here. So push your recoil spring forward. And you're in a barrel. It's a bit fiddly. This just makes it easier overall, really, to take the whole assembly out. Prevents any further damage occurring. And then once that's out, I can remove that out of the way. And then the whole lot can slide back. I should now be able to get the recoil spring out. We don't need that. I can go to one side, and guide rod. You can now remove your outer barrel. There's your outer barrel and hop unit. If you wanted to remove the inner barrel at this point, you can do. Looks like there's a lot of hop up applied on that. So that's that out. So that's your outer barrel, inner barrel and hop up assembly. That's your guide rod and recoil spring, which is all fine, in good condition. And here we have our piston head, which looks fine. And of course, the bit that we're really interested in, which is the loading nozzle, which does look like it's a bit beat up. So that's that out as well. Now, what you don't want to lose, which I nearly have here, is the return spring for the loading nozzle, which has got stuck down here, which is this little spring here. And that basically sits in the top of there and allows that to spring back and forward. Don't know if you can make that out on camera, but do not lose that spring. That sits in that little channel on top of the loading nozzle, and you don't want to lose that. Okay, so we keep all these pieces together. We need that. This is the old loaded nozzle. It does look a little bit beat up. It doesn't look too bad. But we'll change it anyway and see if that solves some of the issues that we're having. So put that old one to one side. What I'm going to do at this point in the build is just do a little bit of cleanup. So at this point, if you were going to want to do a full strip down, we've done the full strip down. We've removed the outer inner barrel and hop unit. We've removed the loading nozzle. We've removed the piston head. So that's all out. So with that all out, we've got our guide rod and recoil spring. That's out of the way. Do not lose the little spring that's your return spring for your loading nozzle. Don't lose the little hex head bolt that goes in the back to hold it all together. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we're going to look at replacing this loading nozzle just now. So we're going to put this back in. The most important thing with these, it's quite tricky because you've got to get that way up and not lose the spring. And the easiest way to do that is to put the spring into this little channel underneath here. Now can you see the little, I don't know if you'll make that out on camera, but there is a little channel just in the bottom of your top slide. And if you place that spring in that channel, then hopefully when you replace the loading nozzle, make sure you push the spring forward so that can sit on top like so. And hopefully that will go on there fine. So the piston head goes inside your loading nozzle like so. That sits like that. You know it's the same because this spare part was supplied as an ASG genuine spare. And then in theory that should just drop on like that. Now you can check the spring like so. It should spring back freely. If you're getting a bit of resistance, then it's time for a bit of lubrication. Now you don't want to go to town on the lubrication. Just a little bit will do it. Just a little bit to get it moving. And it should be good. Right, so then you've got your spring in the bottom of the little slot in the hole there. Take our loading nozzle and piston assembly. And what we'll do is, first of all, we'll put the inner barrel back in and the outer barrel. Like so. And that just sits in, as you can see, but we're going to want to push that all the way forward. And if you want to make it easy for yourself, it depends how you want to do it, but if you want to put it all in as one assembly, that's fine. You can do that. You can put the whole lot in. But I will put in one piece at a time, I think, just to make it easier for myself. It can be fiddly. So that's our recoil spring, guide rod, centered correctly. Got to make sure it's seated, and it seats on a little nub on top of your hop chamber. And then what I find the easiest way to do it is we've got our spring in the bottom there. So let's push the whole assembly forward. Turn this the right way up, so you want the little slot on the bottom. Pop that in. And then let the whole lot slide back, and that should be you. Work in the grease a bit. Okay. Right, so that's our slide back together. As I say, you've got your loading nozzle, your cylinder head all sat in. Recoil spring and guide, that's in. Hop unit inner barrel and outer barrel all back in. So what we don't want to forget to do is replace the Allen screw on the back. You can probably see that Allen screw there. So just wind it in with your 2.5mm hex head or Allen key and wind it in. You don't want to strip the thread, so just get it tight. I don't like to use that side of the Allen key because you can put a lot of torque on. You don't want to put too much torque on and strip it, so just enough with that. Once that's nice and tight, then we should be good to go. Now for replacement of the top slide, you take your lower, line up the slide, he says, struggling, line up the slide, and then inside there you're going to be lining that up until you've got a clearing, like so. And then that'll only go one way around because you've got your notch. And that's it, it's back in. Check the slide. Slide's okay. You can do a dry fire, make sure so we appear to be working, and that is that. That is how you replace a loading nozzle on a CZ Shadow 2. Not a very difficult job, pretty quick, pretty simple. Gets very dirty doing it if you've oiled your pistols well, which as many of you will know I tend to. So I will give this a proper clean up on the externals with a bit of rag, and I don't leave kitchen roll all over it. But just to recap then, if you're going to be stripping down the CZ Shadow 2, take the top slide off, you just push it back with the hammer back, push it back ever so slightly until you feel that you can get this out, and then slide that out, slide all the way to the back and all the way forward. That'll take your top slide off. I find the easiest way to remove the outer, inner barrels and the guide rod and recoil spring assembly with these particular pistols, not with all pistols, just with this CZ Shadow 2. I find the easiest way of doing it is to remove the Allen headed bolt at the back there with a 2.5mm Allen key. Slide this entire assembly forward on the spring tension, remove the nozzle and piston head, and then just slide that out in a one so it all comes out together, because you should be able to push that forward and slide it out on its own, but with this particular pistol it can be quite fiddly. You run the risk of causing damage. So there you go, that's how to strip down the CZ Shadow 2 to its pretty much bare components in the top slide. As to the lower on these, you shouldn't really need to do much to it. I don't have any repairs to do on this lower, and this one's been used many times in game, not particularly by me, but it is bashed and battered. It's had a lot of use and it still works within reason. I'm just having to do some remedial repairs here. So there we go. I hope you found that useful. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, then please do drop a like on it. If you have any comments for me or any tips to dismantling one of these Shadow 2s and that, then do let me know in the comments. And as you know, I'll always respond to a comment. But apart from that, I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.